What happens when a legendary actress with decades of experience sits across from a talk show host who thinks she knows everything? Buckle up, because what went down between Marla Gibbs and Jennifer Hudson was nothing short of explosive. The Jennifer Hudson Show was supposed to be a feel-good afternoon segment. Marla Gibbs, the iconic star who made audiences laugh for years on The Jeffersons and 2127, was there to discuss her new memoir and reflect on her incredible career. What nobody expected was for the interview to turn into a verbal battlefield that left the entire studio stunned. Jennifer Hudson walked onto the stage with her usual confidence, flashing her $1,000,000 smile as she greeted the audience. "Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the one and only Marla Gibbs." The applause was thunderous as Marla, dressed in a sharp burgundy blazer, made her way to the guest chair with the grace of someone who had commanded stages for over 5 decades. "Marla, it is such an honor to have you here," Jennifer began warmly. "I have to say, growing up watching you on television, you were such an inspiration." Marla smiled politely, but there was something in her eyes that suggested she was already sizing up the situation. "Thank you, Jennifer. Though I have to say, inspiration is earned through years of hard work, not just handed out like participation trophies." The comment caught Jennifer slightly off guard, but she pressed on. "Absolutely. And speaking of hard work, let's talk about your new book. In it, you mentioned some challenges you faced as a Black actress in Hollywood during the 70s and 80s. How do you think things have changed for performers today?" Marla leaned back in her chair, her expression growing more serious. "Well, Jennifer, that's an interesting question coming from someone who won an Oscar early in their career. Tell me, what challenges have you faced exactly?" The studio audience shifted uncomfortably. This wasn't the warm, fuzzy conversation they had expected. Jennifer's smile faltered slightly as she tried to maintain her composure. "I mean, every performer faces obstacles. Marla, the industry can be tough for everyone." "Tough for everyone?" Marla repeated, her voice taking on an edge. "Let me tell you about tough, sweetheart. Tough is being told you are too dark for primetime television. Tough is having to fight for every line, every scene, every moment of screen time because the writers think your character should just be comic relief. Tough is not having a talk show handed to you because you can sing." The tension in the studio was palpable. Jennifer's team behind the cameras looked nervous, unsure whether to intervene or let this play out. Jennifer herself was clearly flustered, but tried to regain control of the interview. "Marla, I respect everything you've been through, but I think you might be misunderstanding my journey. I worked incredibly hard to get where I am today." Marla's laugh was sharp and cutting. "Misunderstanding? Honey, I've been in this business since before you were born. I understand perfectly. What I don't understand is this new generation that thinks struggle is not getting the part you want on the first audition." Jennifer's voice rose slightly, her professional demeanor beginning to crack. "That's not fair, Marla. You don't know my story. You don't know what I've been through." "Oh, I know your story," Marla shot back, leaning forward in her chair. "American Idol, Dream Goals, Oscar winner, Grammy winner. Now talk show host. Sounds real rough. Meanwhile, some of us spent decades fighting just to be seen as more than a stereotype." The audience was completely silent now, watching this verbal sparring match unfold. Jennifer's hands were clenched in her lap as she struggled to find the right words. "I never said my journey was harder than yours, but that doesn't mean it was easy." Mara's eyebrows shot up. "Child, you want to know what wasn't easy? It wasn't easy watching talented Black actresses get passed over year after year while the industry waited for the next big thing. It wasn't easy being grateful for roles that should have been beneath my talent level just because they were the only roles available. And it sure isn't easy sitting here listening to someone who's had every door opened for them talk about struggle." Jennifer stood abruptly, clearly reaching her breaking point. "You know what, Marla? I invited you here to celebrate your career and your book. But all you want to do is tear me down." Marla remained seated, completely calm, despite the storm she had unleashed. "I'm not tearing you down, baby. I'm trying to educate you. There's a difference between being handed opportunities and earning them through blood, sweat, and tears." "Handed opportunities?" Jennifer's voice was incredulous. "Do you think winning an Oscar was handed to me? Do you think this show was just given to me?" "I think," Marla said slowly, rising from her chair with deliberate grace, "that you have confused talent with struggle. Yes, you can sing. Yes, you can act. But don't you dare sit there and pretend you climbed the same mountain the rest of us had to climb." The words hung in the air like smoke after a gunshot. Jennifer's face flushed with a mixture of anger and embarrassment as she stared at Mara, who stood with the poise of someone who had just delivered a masterclass in putting someone in their place. You want to talk about mountains? Jennifer's voice was shaking now, not with fear, but with pure rage. Let me tell you about my mountain, Mara. Let me tell you about growing up in Chicago, watching my mother struggle to keep food on the table while I sang in church choirs for free, just hoping someone would notice. Mara crossed her arms, unmoved by the emotional display. Church choirs? How original. Tell me something I haven't heard 1,000 times before. You want something original? Jennifer stepped closer, her professionalism completely abandoned now. How about losing my best? You want something original? Jennifer stepped closer, her professionalism completely abandoned. How about losing my best friend, my everything, to violence while I was trying to make it in this industry? How about having to perform through grief so deep I could barely breathe? How about carrying that pain with me every single day while people like you judge my success? For the first time since the interview began, Mara's expression softened slightly, but her voice remained steady. Tragedy doesn't equal struggle in this business, honey. Plenty of people lose people they love. That's life, not career adversity. Jennifer's jaw dropped. The audience gasped audibly. Even the camera operator seemed to freeze at the coldness of Mara's response. Did you just minimize my trauma? Did you really just say that losing someone doesn't matter? I didn't say it doesn't matter, Mara clarified, her tone matter of fact. I said it's not the same as professional struggle. Your personal pain is valid, but don't confuse it with industry hardship. I have buried friends too, baby. The difference is, I had to do it while fighting for roles that paid enough to keep the lights on. Jennifer was pacing now, her hands gesturing wildly as she spoke. You know what your problem is, Mara? You're so bitter about your own experience that you can't acknowledge anyone else's journey. You're gatekeeping struggle like it's some exclusive club that only your generation can belong to. Mara's laugh was incredulous. Child, I'm not gatekeeping anything. I'm simply refusing to pretend that your red carpet walk to success is the same as my uphill battle through broken glass. Red carpet walk? Jennifer spun around to face her fully. You think this has been a red carpet walk? Do you know how many times I was told I was too big, too dark, too much? Do you know how many people told me I would never make it because I didn't fit their image? Mara nodded slowly. Yes, I do know because I lived through it decades before you were even born. The difference is, when they told me those things, there was nowhere to go. No American Idol to showcase my talent. No Hollywood machine ready to package and sell my story. I had to kick down doors that didn't even exist yet. The studio producer was frantically gesturing from behind the cameras, trying to signal for a commercial break, but both women were too locked in their battle to notice or care. So what? Jennifer threw her hands up. Because you had it harder, my experience doesn't count? Because the doors were already cracked open by the time I got there, I don't deserve my success. You deserve your success, Mara said, her voice dropping to a dangerous whisper. But you don't deserve to rewrite history and pretend you struggled the same way we did. You want respect. Acknowledge the women who bled for the opportunities you inherited. Jennifer was quiet for a moment, her chest heaving as she tried to collect herself. When she spoke again, her voice was deadly calm. You know what, Mara? You're right about one thing. Women like you did bleed for opportunities. But maybe that's the problem. Maybe you bled so much that now you can't see anything but blood. Maybe you're so stuck in the past that you can't celebrate progress when you see it. Mara's eyes flashed dangerously. Progress? You call this progress? Having a talk show where you invite legends just to disrespect them when they try to share some wisdom. Wisdom. Jennifer's voice cracked with disbelief. This isn't wisdom, Mara. This is bitterness. This is you taking out 50 years of frustration on someone who had nothing to do with what happened to you. Nothing to do with it? Mara stepped forward again. Baby, you have everything to do with it. You represent everything that's wrong with this industry now. Instant gratification, instant success, instant platforms to complain about how hard everything is. Jennifer's producer was now standing at the edge of the stage, clearly ready to intervene. But Jennifer held up a hand to stop him. You want to know what's wrong with this industry, Mara? It's people like you who can't let go of old grudges long enough to lift up the next generation. It's legends who are so threatened by new talent that they tear it down instead of nurturing it. Mara's voice rose for the first time. Honey, I'm not threatened by you or anyone else. I'm disappointed. Disappointed that someone with your platform uses it to whine instead of work. disappointed that someone with your opportunities doesn't seem to understand the weight of what they carry. I understand the weight perfectly, Jennifer shot back. What I don't understand is why you think tearing me down honors the women who came before you. What I don't understand is how you can stand there and call yourself a legend while acting like a bully. The word bully hit Mara like a physical blow. Her entire demeanor shifted, her shoulders straightening as she drew herself up to her full height. The silence that followed was deafening. Marla Gibbs, a woman who had faced down network executives, racist casting directors, and decades of industry discrimination, stood frozen as the word echoed through the studio. Her face went through a series of emotions: shock, hurt, and then something much more dangerous. Pure fury. A bully. Mara's voice was barely above a whisper, but it carried the weight of a thunderclap. You think I'm a bully for trying to teach you some respect? For trying to show you what real struggle looks like? Jennifer didn't back down, even though she could see the fire building in Mara's eyes. Yes, I think you're a bully. I think you invited yourself onto my show just to tear me down in front of my audience. I think you're using your status as a legend to justify being cruel. Mara's composure finally cracked completely. You want to see cruel? Cruel is having your character written off a show because the white producers decided black families were getting too much screen time. Cruel is being told you're lucky to have any job at all when you complain about the pay. Cruel is watching lesser talents get opportunities you deserved just because they fit somebody's idea of acceptable. And that's my fault. Jennifer's voice broke with emotion. I'm supposed to pay for what happened to you decades ago. I'm supposed to apologize for having opportunities you didn't. You're supposed to acknowledge them. Mara exploded, her voice filling every corner of the studio. You're supposed to understand that your success stands on the backs of women who never got their flowers. You're supposed to carry yourself with the dignity that honors their sacrifice. The audience was completely transfixed now, some covering their mouths in shock, others leaning forward as if they were watching a car accident they couldn't look away from. Jennifer wiped tears from her eyes, but her voice remained strong. I have carried myself with dignity, Mara. I have honored the women who came before me in everything I do. But what you're asking for isn't honor. It's penance. You want me to be ashamed of my success? I want you to be grateful for it, Mara fired back. Grateful enough to understand that with great opportunity comes great responsibility. Grateful enough to not sit here and pretend your journey was as hard as mine. Jennifer threw her hands up in frustration. Why does it have to be a competition? Why can't we both have struggled? Why can't we both have overcome obstacles? Why does acknowledging my pain somehow diminish yours? Mara paused, caught off guard by the question. For a moment, her mask slipped, and the audience caught a glimpse of the vulnerable woman beneath the fierce exterior. Because, she said slowly, when you make it sound like everyone's struggle is the same, you erase what made ours special. You erase what made us warriors. No one is erasing anything, Jennifer said, her voice softer now, but still firm. But you can't gatekeep struggle, Mara. Pain is pain. Rejection is rejection. The fact that the industry has evolved doesn't make my challenges less real. Mara shook her head. The industry hasn't evolved, honey. It's just gotten better at packaging discrimination in prettier wrapping paper. You think because you have a talk show that means equality has been achieved. Jennifer's producer was now standing directly behind the cameras, making frantic cutting motions across his throat. But both women were oblivious to everything except each other. I never said equality has been achieved, Jennifer replied. But I also refuse to believe that progress isn't real. I refuse to believe that the doors you kicked open haven't made a difference. They made a difference, Mara admitted grudgingly. But not enough of one, and certainly not enough for your generation to get comfortable and forget the price that was paid. I haven't forgotten, Jennifer said quietly. But I also haven't let it make me bitter. I haven't let it turn me into someone who tears down other black women. She staggered slightly, her hand reaching for the back of her chair for support. Tearing down? Is that what you think this is? Mara asked. What would you call it? Jennifer challenged. You came on my show in front of my audience and spent the entire time telling me I don't deserve my success. You've minimized my trauma, dismissed my struggles, and made me feel like I should apologize for achieving my dreams. If that's not tearing down, I don't know what is. Mara was quiet for a long moment, her breathing heavy as she processed Jennifer's words. When she finally spoke, her voice was different, lower, softer somehow. I didn't come here to tear you down, Jennifer. I came here because I see so much potential in you, and it breaks my heart to watch you waste it on feeling sorry for yourself. Feeling sorry for myself? Jennifer's voice was incredulous. When have I ever felt sorry for myself? Every time you talk about how hard things are for you, Mara replied. Every time you act like your struggles are unique. Every time you forget to mention the shoulders you're standing on. Jennifer stared at her for a long moment, then slowly shook her head. You know what, Mara? I think we're done here. I think this interview is over. You're going to kick me off your show? Mara asked, a hint of amusement creeping into her voice despite the tension. I'm going to end this conversation before we both say things we can't take back, Jennifer replied firmly. She turned to face the audience, her professional mask sliding back into place despite her obvious emotional exhaustion. Ladies and gentlemen, Marla Gibbs, everyone. But Mara wasn't finished. As Jennifer began to walk toward her desk, Mara's voice rang out one final time. Jennifer, wait. Jennifer stopped but didn't turn around. You're right about one thing, Mara said, her voice carrying a note of resignation. I am bitter. 50 years in this business will do that to you. But my bitterness doesn't make your success any less valid. It just makes me wish you understood the full weight of what you carry. Jennifer turned slowly to face her. And I wish you understood that attacking me doesn't honor the women who came before you. It just perpetuates the cycle that hurt you in the first place. With that, Jennifer walked off her own stage, leaving Mara standing alone in front of a stunned audience. The cameras kept rolling as Mara looked out at the crowd, her legendary composure finally returning. Well, she said with a slight smile, I guess that's what happens when two strong black women refuse to back down. And there you have it. One of the most explosive television moments in recent memory. What do you think? Was Mara right to call out Jennifer, or did she cross the line? Drop your thoughts in the comments below, and make sure to subscribe for more incredible stories like this one.